Alright, AI from the ground up. Lesson 1. Today I'm just going to show you this one simple script. It's the foundation, the building block for everything else we're going to build. It's just like any other command line tool. It takes input and gives output, and it's just like the best way to get started. Alright, so one script is all you need. So here I'm going to just show you what that script is. This is the script, one shot. I can say whatever I want. It says something back. Very simple, straightforward. And this is the core building block that we can build everything from. Now I want to show you really quick how small this script really is. I'll just make it a little. Oh, yeah, that's it. It already fits on the screen. That's the entire script. It's 22 lines. It's just an API call to the Llama CPP server. Okay, so I just moved in. These are all the same script, basically. So they just use different things under the hood. So I already showed you the Llama server shot. That's what I just copied it over and named it one shot. And if you were to use, let's say, if you use the Llama CPP shot, you'll see it's pretty much the same, but this one has model kwargs and generation kwargs, and then calls LLM through Llama CPP through this thing. Whereas this one just uses a HTTP request directly to the server API. So this is the Llama server shot that we were already looking at. This one, the way it works is it will take your prompt and then it will load the model at that time and then respond. So this one takes longer to load because the model isn't kept in memory. Whereas this one, the one that uses the server, you just have to load the model. So that basically looks like calling this. So on my computer, I'm taking this Qwen 3.6 35B A3B uncensored, and this isn't even the proper place you're supposed to have it, but this could just be any file on your computer where you downloaded the model, which could be several gigabytes depending on which model it is. This one I downloaded with the Hugging Face client, so it just ended up in this weird spot. And I think I'm linking to like the wrong place, so don't take this to heart yet. I'll try to clear that up in a future video. Okay, so to call the Llama server, once all that's installed, you basically just do a -m and then the link to the file name, which right now I have just put into this variable. And so that starts loading the model, and it will take a long time because, especially with this model, it's close to like 20 gigs, so it has to load all of it into the RAM at once. So for this particular model, you would need, you couldn't run it with, if you only have 16 gigs of RAM, you would need like 32 gigs of RAM. Then with this one, it's different because this long process that's happening here, where it takes forever to load, would have to load every time you start it up. But it's also useful that it's not taking up all your RAM all the time. So if you don't use it that often, you would want this one to be the one you have loaded as your one shot. Does that make sense? And then I also have an example of Llama shot. And here again, it's pretty much the same. It's just a different API call to a different port and stuff. It basically is the default for where a llama serves a model from. In this case, I put the model in there directly because that's how you call it on here. And I'm actually using the 4B here. I actually don't use a llama shot at all. This is kind of like something I used before. The way Ollama works is, at least by default, it will load the model into memory only when you call it, but it will also keep it in memory for 4 minutes. And 4 minutes is weird because, honestly, I'll usually... I mean, it takes about like a minute or two to get the answer, depending on the size of the model you're using. And then by the 4th minute, it drops out of memory, and then by like minute 5 or 6 is when you might think of the next thing you want to ask. So the default timeout on it is kind of weird. It's useful that it has, by default, it keeps it in memory, but this is probably a good time to plug this website. Friends don't let friends use Ollama. There's really good reasons behind this, but without getting into the politics of it, it's just the fact that it works worse. The only thing it really does the best is that it's only one line to download. But downloading the Llama server, it's just like 2 lines. It's like you download it and you unzip it and then you put it in a folder. And you make sure it's on your command path so that you can execute the... So it's just like 2 or 3 steps instead of 1. But other than that, Ollama actually is less efficient, so it's, you're not going to want to use it for that reason, basically. So this is the one that I use as one shot all the time, because it keeps it loaded in memory. And this is the first one I showed you. You'll notice one other difference is these two actually have a bit of a prompt template written hard-coded into them. And so this one, it's just a little simpler to look at, but basically I would put that right here. Same deal. The F on a string in Python, well, I don't know if the audience is people that want to learn to code or what, but basically the F on the string just means that when you have one of these curly bracket things, it actually is taken as a variable. So I'm just going to copy it. Okay, so now it basically has the same thing. Now the reason for this is, I mean, on these two I just have a default template without anything filled in on it right now. So it doesn't do anything really except for ask for the, switch the role of who's talking. But in general, these work even without doing that. They kind of just assume that you mean the assistant should start talking, although that might be based on which model you use. But this one, you can see what I'm doing here. And it's funny because for the 4B Quen model, that can actually talk for longer, I guess because they thought the tokens are cheaper, so they let it give you an in-depth answer. But here you can see the no-think. This works on that particular Quen model. That makes it so it doesn't have the reasoning tags, the thinking tags that go on about what it's about to say. And I also included this respond very concisely. So the prompt you input would be, this is assuming you call the one shot in the way that I showed you where you just write it on the line. Here it just puts what you say in there, and then it prepends it with the no-think tag, and then appends the respond very concisely to no matter what you said. And this makes the model respond faster. So if you wanted, you could put that in either of these two also. I might put it right here. But you can also put stuff like in a friendly tone. And we haven't even gotten into the system prompts yet, so that's going to be a whole other video. But now you're starting to see how you can sculpt this script to do what you want in this way. And so it can respond in the way that you want. Yeah, let's see if well, it's not loaded yet. See, after all that talking, this model isn't quite loaded yet. So that's one thing about using the big 3.6 35B A3B. But once it does load, it actually responds very quickly because the A3B at the end of the name, right here, means that it's only 3 billion active parameters. So it chooses which of the, out of the 35 billion, it chooses some 3 billion. There we go, it's ready. See, this is shorter than when I asked it before. Before it said I'm Quen 3.6 and it said what lab created it and it said all this other stuff. So now that I added respond concisely, every time I ask it a question, it gives me the quick answer. And now the way these work, so basically it's cool because whether you do end up using Ollama or you want to use the Llama CPP by itself, like this middle one, or you want to have the server running, all of these would just be, if I want to do a Llama, I just copy it over to one shot. And now when I call one shot, it's the Ollama one. Or I could copy the Llama CPP to one shot. They all work the same, which is they take one string as input, and that string is either the prompt itself or the string refers to a file name. And that part I'll show you now. The file name is cool because being able to give it a file name is cool because it's not affected by the prompt you put in the script. The prompt in the script that we just edited with respond very concisely is only going to work when you call one shot with the string right in the command line. But if you're using the file input, it has nothing to do with that. It's a full prompt. It can include the system prompt. It can have multiple exchanges between the user and assistant, and it'll take that full file and load the answer from that. But now you know basically these are all going to be available in the Github repository under lesson 1, but basically they're all the same thing. It just depends on what your setup is. And I highly recommend the Llama server shot. Ollama is easier to install for some people, but it's actually kind of slow and inefficient, and it has more limited models. It's not really, I don't recommend Ollama these days especially. But I'll show in the next video, I'll have the installation of all of these. So just stay tuned for the next video if you don't have them installed yet. But what I can show you here is that you can put the full prompt into a file and that can be whatever you want. This is basically how all of them are trained. Well, especially if they're GGUF, it might be different with full-size things, but they're basically all trained to have this prompt be recognized. This is just, it starts with the system prompt. You would put something like, and I'll go into more detail about the system prompt later. Oh, you don't need to put IM_end on the same line, but technically you can, and you know, I don't know. I just do that sometimes if it's all short anyway. Then the user could say, just gonna give it some silly short thing to do. And I also want to show off that these can write code because that's going to be a major part of what we're doing. The fact that they can write code makes them much more useful because they don't know everything. If you ask them questions, they get things wrong. But when they write code, that's actually testable. If the code works or not can be tested. So that is like one of the very useful things that AI can actually do. And then here I'm just leaving it to switch off to assistant role so it knows that it's answering as the assistant now. And this is just a short example of a system prompt, not a system, that's a system prompt. This is a short example of a full prompt. Now I've given it system and the user thing. So then when you call it, you don't have to tell it what you're telling it. It's all been put into this file. And now remember, since we're not calling it with a random string that says what it should say, it's not going to do that sculpting that we put in the file where it puts respond very concisely. Although it will respond concisely since I put it in the system prompt in the file. And there, that's basically a working thing. Find dot name. I'm going to do O actually because we're in this folder where some things start with O. There. So as you can see, you almost have something that can do things for you now, because I didn't need to know how to write this bash command. And this is why this can be so useful. I know it's kind of funny that I'm showing you some programming and then telling you you don't need to be a programmer, but if you can just start to wrap your head around just the bare minimum of how this stuff works, then you'll realize you can make something that actually just answers in, like, you ask in plain English and it gives you a working program that can actually run on your computer and do that. Alright, so now we've covered a little bit about how to get started. You learned about Llama CPP and OLlama, which actually both of them run on Llama CPP. And they just have different install methods and interfaces. Then OneShot you learned about, the main script you need to do all the rest of the stuff. The inner prompt template, which is where we put respond concisely and where you can put whatever inner instructions you want on it. And then the external file prompts, which allows you to run any kind of thing with its own system prompt and everything. And then just briefly touched on how they can write code for you and stuff. And so the external file prompts we'll eventually get to in a couple more lessons. How you can use programming to generate the prompts and then run those, and you get dynamic file prompts. And if you want to contact me for any reason, or if you want to hire me, I'm creating agent workflows for people. I specialize in these small LLMs that work on local devices. So I'm streamlining, but I'm going to show you the whole workflow I use. If you don't have the time or you have enough money that you would rather pay someone else, then I can help you make your own workflow. But I'm going to show everything. I'm going to leave it all open source, and you'll see how these workflows are tailored to small local models, so you don't need to pay for the API price, and you can save energy, save the environment. And it's especially good for privacy if you don't want stuff to leave your computer and be read by all the big companies. So you can email me at freelunches@tuta.io, and you can also just ask me questions and stuff. I don't charge for that. It's just if you want me to work on a whole project for you, or if you want me to audit some vibe coded thing you made. If you have a working app already and you want me to just look it over and make sure there's no obvious vulnerabilities that the AI built in, then that's something I can do also. Or if you just want me to help vibe code a tool for you from the ground up, I can do that too. And if you're enjoying the journey, stay tuned for more lessons on this stuff. Alright, and remember not to watch too many videos at once, because YouTube can fry your brain. Alright, see ya.